Hello everyone. Good morning and welcome to today's The Hindu News Analysis. Myself Nitin Kebiju. I will be appearing for the civil service interview this year. In today's analysis, we'll be discussing about 7 important articles which have been discussed in the Hindu newspaper today. Before going to the articles, please pause for a second and attempt the practice question by yourself. After discussing the relevant article, we'll be coming back to the question again. First article, for BRICS, the challenges and opportunities. So the article talks about the relevance, the challenges faced by BRICS and the opportunities which the BRICS organization is having at the backdrop of the COVID pandemic. So it says that the COVID-19 crisis has put Russia's presidency of BRICS to test. So this year Russia is supposed to have presided the BRICS summit, and the BRICS summit was supposed to happen in July 21st to 23rd in St. Petersburg in Russia. Okay. So many experts believe that the COVID-19 pandemic have highlighted the crisis of globalization and global governance. For example, we have seen many issues between US and WHO, even US and China. So the world institutions are not able to provide a proper leadership. And if the Russian president can convince the BRIC nations to overcome its internal issues, especially between India and China, and if you're able to provide a common vision, especially in the political domain, the BRICS will be able to fill the void of governance. Also, as we have already seen, the COVID-19 have is another stage for political rivalry that have reinforced some conflicts between US, China, Russia, and all. So here, the BRICS emerges as an important global institution. Also, the G7 countries. I hope you know about the G7 countries. There are 7 countries in G7, right? So it was created during the Cold War. It has been used as a instrument by the Western powers to strengthen their position with respect to the non-West, right? So it is not a non-biased institution. G7 is not a non-biased institution, right? So BRICS, in the other hand, it is entirely based on different values and adheres to the goals and objectives of the UN Charter and idea of equality. But there are some challenges faced by the BRICS. What are they? The BRICS grouping is often criticized for being ineffective. Many, especially in the West, they predicted that the BRICS organization won't continue further. But the BRICS organization is continuing still now, right? Also, recently, the BRICS Center for Research and Development of Vaccination was planned to be established. The decision was taken up in back in 2018 in the Johannesburg summit in South Africa. But there are other issues as well. One is the money could be an issue. For example, there is going to be a very serious lack of money, as all countries in the BRICS are going to be economically affected because of the COVID. So these are the main challenges which are faced by the BRICS nations. One is the money, and one is the lack of a common vision, and it is criticized as slow moving. So if we are able to overcome all this, provide a common vision, then we can fill the BRICS can fill the common void, the void which is experienced with the global governance. That is what this article is talking about. So apart from this, two important prelims concepts have been discussed here. One is the BRICS and one is the G7. So you should be clearly knowing about these two organizations which will be discussed now. So BRICS is an acronym coined for association of 5 major emerging national economies: Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. So originally they were conceived as BRIC. South Africa was not there initially. So South Africa was inducted only in 2010. Then the organization became BRICS. Okay. So in 2009, the leaders of BRIC countries made the first summit, and in 2010, BRIC became a formal institution. Okay. Now, economists believe that these nations, not 4 nations, the 5 nations, will become dominant suppliers of manufactured goods, services, and raw material by 2050 due to low labor and production cost. As you all know, India, China, South Africa, Russia, all these countries are having low labor and production cost. With cheap labor is available there. So all those factors have the potential to make these countries the dominant suppliers of manufactured goods and services. Now, coming to the G7 countries, it is an international intergovernmental economic organization. As you already seen, it was established in the backdrop of the Cold War, right? that is in 1975. It consists of seven largest IMF advanced economies in the world. They are Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, and the UK and the United States. Now, please go through what is G8 countries. Okay, G8 countries, there's an addition of Russia in G8. That's it. Fine. But just go through G8 was recently in news because the G8 summit was cancelled. Russia was taken away from it after the annexation of Crimea. So that it happened around a year or two before. Please go through that. Now, coming back to the question. Consider the following about G7 countries. 1. Russia is a member of G7 countries. 2. It was established in 2008. So select the right answers. So as we all know, Russia is not a member of G7 countries. Russia was a member of G8 countries, right? So first statement is not correct. And second statement was established in 2008. No, because it was established in the 1970s in the backdrop of the Cold War. So the answer becomes D, none of the above. Okay. Now, coming to the second article, coronavirus spares no major organ in the body. So, the article discuss about the effect of coronavirus on various body parts, body organs like lungs, heart, neural neural organs, and kidney and all. So initially, it was thought that it majorly affects the lungs only, but recently physicians are beginning to realize that lungs are just the ground zero, that is starting point for the virus, while the virus spreads its lethal tentacles to multiple organs, heart, blood vessels, kidneys, gut, and the brain, and not necessary in one patient, for many patients, right? So while 80% of the people infected with the virus either don't display any symptoms or only mild symptoms, the remaining need hospitalization, and about 5% needs ICU care. So this was the statistics which was taken, which was we were able to establish during the COVID pandemic. Also, now the discussion about this multiple organ affected, it was published in a feature, as a feature in the journal Science. It explains how the virus tears apart the body and attacks different organs with so far unseen ferocity. Now, coming to the more specifics into it, the virus enters the cell by binding to receptors found in cells. There are some receptors found in certain cells, and those receptors are called as ACE2. Okay, so the lining of our nose is rich in the cells with this receptor. So the nose has many ACE2 receptors. So this makes, hence it is the site of entry into the body. The virus enters into the body mainly through nose. Also, the same receptors, that is ACE2, they are found in cells, found in many other organs, leaving them also vulnerable. Now coming to the lungs, as we all know, the tiny air sacs in the lungs are called alveoli, the balloon-like structures you might have studied in the biology textbook of class 11th or 12th. So their oxygen exchange takes place between the lung and the blood vessels, right? Those blood vessels are rich in ACE2 receptors. So once the virus enters the cells, the immune system mounts an all-out battle against the virus, so disrupting the oxygen transfer and leaving the air sacs with fluid and dead cells, which makes difficult breathing shallow and difficult and accompanied by coughing. So as we all know, patients face breathing difficulties when affected with COVID-19. So this is the reason the alveoli getting filled with fluids and other dead tissues due to the fight between the antibodies and the antigen, right? Now, patients experiencing the worsening conditions typically have their immune systems overreacting and bringing on a cytokine storm. So what is this? For example, when an antigen enters a body, sometimes the body just overreacts. The body produces excessive antibodies to fight the antigens. Okay, so this situation will bring on a cytokine storm where the level of cytokines far exceed the levels needed, resulting in healthy tissues being attacked. So the antibodies, instead of attacking the antigens, will attack the healthy tissues. For example, that means that our immunity will overreact and kill our own cells. So this is another major issue which is found affecting the COVID patients, right? Now coming to the heart. Heart is one of the organs that get affected after the lungs. the disruption seems to extend to the blood itself, causing blood clots, which when breaks can restrict the blood supply to the brain, which can even cause stroke, thereby affecting the brain also. Also, the infection may also lead to blood vessel constriction, causing reduced blood supply to the organs. Now, so the virus attacking the blood vessels could be one of the reason why the patients with blood pressure, diabetes are at a higher risk. We have already heard that the people with pre-existing conditions, that is the comorbidities, are at a high risk due to COVID-19. Right, the mortality rate is also high. So this might be the reason. This might be the reason why people with blood pressure and diabetes are having higher fatalities. Now, there is another surprising fact which is found that the people who are asthmatics or already have respiratory diseases are not at a great risk, unlike those with vascular problems, diabetes, obesity, age, hypertension, etc. So this is an interesting and surprising fact, because the lungs are the primary areas of infection, right? So in spite of this, the people with existing respiratory issues, they face lesser issues, lesser complexities than the people with other issues like diabetes, etc. Also, kidneys are very vulnerable, and experience in China shows that a sizable fraction of patients may suffer from kidney failure also. So we have already seen that lungs are affected, heart is affected, brain can be affected, also kidneys also can be affected. Also, a small subset, around 5 to 10% of the patients suffer from neurological problems also. So this is a small subset, but we can see that the neurological issues can also happen due to COVID-19. So this is the article all about the multiple organ failures which can happen due to the COVID-19 crisis. Okay. Coming to the next article. The article is all about imagining a future with cleaner. As we already know, due to the lockdown which is happening in the country, the pollution levels have reduced to drastic levels. So the uh, article is discussing about that imagining a future with cleaner air. The nationwide lockdown and halting of most economic activities to combat the novel coronavirus has brought about a significant improvements in the air quality of the country, albeit in the shorter term. Now, coming to the CPCB data, Central Pollution Control Board data, it says that a sudden reduction of the pollutant levels across the country due to the stringent travel restrictions, shutting of most industries, halting commercial and construction activities, the impact of air quality improvements have become immediately visible within and outside the cities. Right. Now coming to some statistics, Delhi has recorded a drop of around 44% of PM 2.5 levels between the particular period. Even Noida and Gurugram have recorded similar reduction in the PM 2.5 levels as well as the PM 10 levels. Other capital cities such as Mumbai, Bangalore, and Lucknow have also reported a decrease in the range of 18 to 30% during the lockdown period. Also, coming to other particles such as NO2 concentration, and even sulfur dioxide, most of the cities have recorded a drastic decline in the presence of these pollutants. So this is what the article is discussing about. So try to understand what each of these pollutants are. Try to read about air quality indicators, AQI, okay, and try to learn the source of these pollutants. Okay. Now the major sources. One is the program which is taken by the government to reduce the air pollution. This was a very recently enacted program, so this becomes very important for prelims. The National Clean Air Program aims for an improvement of 20 to 30% of the air quality by 2024, taking 2017 as the base year. So we'll be discussing about it in the coming slide, because this is very important for prelims. But there are other issues which you have to focus. For example, one is the waste segregation at the source should be done, followed by recycling. Right, waste generated from households and industries, they are also a major contributor to the air pollution. So that should be focused on. Also, we should focus on innovation in crop residue management to minimize stubble burning in states like Punjab and all. Right. So these are the other areas apart from the above mentioned areas, like we have already shut down industries, vehicular movements, etc. So these are the other two areas which should be focused to improve the air quality. So this is all about the article. Now, coming to the prelims related facts, National Clean Air Program. So, as we already told, it aims for 20 to 30% reduction of PM 2.5 and PM 10. PM stands for particulate matter. So, PM 2.5 and to PM 10 concentration by 2024. So, and it takes 2017 as the base year. Fine. So it is a midterm 5-year action plan with 2019 as the first year. So just ensure that you clearly know what each year means. 2019 is the first year and it is a 5-year plan. So we are targeting the reduction by 2024, right? 2019 to 2024. So that is the duration. And what is the base year? 2017 is the base year. And there are one or two cities chosen under this program. So this is the prelims related fact related to NCAP. Now coming to the next article, quick not likely for China investments. So the news is that the center plans to fast track the review of some investment proposals from neighboring countries such as China, following concerns of the new screening rules. Concerns that the new screening rules could hit plans of companies and investors. So what are these new screening rules? Recently, we have seen that there have been some FDI restrictions to countries uh, which are which are sharing a land border to India, right? Why this was done? To avoid the opportunistic takeovers during the COVID crisis. India said in the past week that all FDI investment from the countries sharing a land border would require prior government clearance, meaning they can't go through a so-called automatic route. So here, what you have to learn for prelims and mains is that FDI has two paths. One is through automatic route and one is through approval route. So what the restriction made is the FDA which comes from automatic route as of now, it will be shifted to the approval route due to the COVID-19 pandemic. This is in the backdrop of some news that Chinese companies are taking more and more stakes in the Indian companies. Understood? Also, a senior government official who is involved in policy making told that any new investment proposal in a non-sensitive sector will be done within 15 days if the stake being bought is not that significant. So in non-sensitive sectors, the government will try to fasten quick nod for all those investments. So that is the news about. Also, while the fast track mechanism, which is in use now, it would be open to all the India's neighbors, China would be the main beneficiary because it has major existing and planned investment in India. According to Brookings research, it is estimated that China is planning to invest around $26 billion in India. Right. So this is all the news about. So please go through the basics related to FDI, different types of mechanisms of approval. FDI coming in, approval mechanism as well as the automatic route. Okay. Now, coming to another important news, recovered patients not immune to reinfection. The World Health Organization warned on Saturday that there is no evidence that people who tested positive for the new coronavirus are immunized and protected against reinfection. As we all know, we think that once we are affected by COVID, we'll get immunity to the coronavirus from in the future, right? But WHO is telling that the researchers are not sufficient to prove that. This is in the backdrop of the news of issuance of immunity passports. What is that? Immunity passports means some governments who wants a gradual return to work and the resumption of economic activity have put forward the idea of issuing documents attesting to the immunity of the people on the basis of serological tests revealing the presence of antibodies in the blood. So the people who are already affected with it, they can get attestation from the government telling that these people are immune from the COVID-19 coronavirus again, so that they can travel. But the WHO is telling that no, there is no evidence that the people who are already affected cannot be reinfected, right? So risk-free certificate and the immunity passport won't be accurate. That is what the WHO is trying to say. Also here there's another term called serological test. We have already discussed in the previous videos. Serological test refers to the antibody test where the blood samples are taken and tested for the presence of antibodies. That is called serological test. Okay. Now coming to the next article. The government to study lessons learned from Spanish flu. So the government, that is the Union HRD Ministry, have asked the universities and research institutes across the country to delve into the archives and other means to study how India handled the 1918 H1N1 pandemic, which is also called as Spanish flu, and what were the measures which were taken to boost the economy after the pandemic had run its course, which had left around 12 to 17 million people dead in the country. So the government is planning to exit the lockdown in May 3, right? So as of now, the plan is still May 3. So the government wants to just go back to history and see what happened, how the exit was taken place in a similar situation in the pandemic around, which is around 100 years before. So the letter is basically to ask for a non-bureaucratic view on how to effect an exit from the lockdown. Most old universities have in their archives much material on how the 1918 pandemic was handled in terms of public health and economy. Fine. So coming to the prelims related fact, we have to learn what is Spanish flu. It was an unusually deadly influenza pandemic which lasted for around 36 months from Jan 1918 to December 1920. As an additional fact, we have already discussed in the previous videos that this was one of the reasons why Germany lost the World War One. The Germans were affected badly by the Spanish flu, and this is one of the reason why the war abruptly ended also. So this is a much less talk in history, right? Now it infected around 500 million people worldwide, which is about a third of the world's population at that time. And coming to the death toll, there were around 50 million deaths worldwide, and India constituted to around 20 million of those deaths. So India was badly affected by the Spanish flu. So going back to the history, we will get many details, many knowledge about how India was able to come out of that pandemic. So it can be successfully used in the present crisis also. Now, coming to the last topic for today, Karnataka begins trial for plasma therapy. So here, as we already discussed in the previous videos, we should be learning what is this plasma therapy, or which is also called as convalescent plasma therapy. So that is the only important thing which is from this article. So what is convalescent plasma therapy? Here, the plasma from the patients who are recovered would be infused into patients who are tested positive for the infection. So what is the use of this? The people who are already recovered will have antibodies generated in their body already, right? So antibodies fight the virus, right? So we will take the antibodies from the plasma of those recovered patients and we'll inject it into the body of the people who are suffering from it, so that the people who are suffering from it in the present scenario will be able to fight the virus in a better manner. So this is all about convalescent plasma therapy. Very important topic for prelapse. Now I hope you understood the concepts. I hope you like the video. Please subscribe to the channel and share it with your friends so that more people will be benefited from this initiative. Have a nice day. Thank you so much.